Cool. We are recording. I'm going to try to change the speaker to. I'm going to pin you up to the front, and then once we go to Q&A, we will take you off the main screen, and we'll kind of jump around a little bit. But the floor is yours, Civvy. Take about 20 minutes. I do not care if you go long or if you go short. Let's just have a good time. It's all yours. And if you're not speaking, try and keep yourself on mute, please, whoever else is here.
All right. Hey, guys. So real quick before we get started, I hope you have some picks nearby, and I hope you have some padlocks nearby. Do exactly like what Pat's doing right now, and just start picking. Just kind of quietly keep your hands busy and hopefully listen along and get some value. So real quick, if you have not heard of me, I am JustACivvy. It's nice to meet everybody. If you have heard of me, it's probably from Instagram, so you kind of know what I'm about. I'm just a regular guy, no military or law enforcement, cool guy training. I just like physical security stuff, digital privacy, and anything outdoors. I really appreciate all you guys tuning in, and let's roll. So a couple days ago, I posted a Q&A on my Instagram story to kind of prepare for this talk. The majority of the questions that I got had to do with how do I get started? There's a bunch of different ways you can go with that question. And I think most of what we'll find online is go buy this kit, go buy that kit, go to the store, get these items. And that's all great. And it's really good that we have those resources available. If you don't know, most anybody can buy lock picking tools if you live in the US. There's not very many restricted places that you can do that. So it's awesome that we can go buy great kit for great prices. There are specific brands. I think the three of us have talked about them on our pages, the brands that we like to buy stuff from. Try to stay away from Amazon pick sets, but you know, they do work if you have to, but we really recommend kind of staying away from that. So just so you know, there are options out there for beginners to go and just buy ready-made sets. But what I'm going to talk about today is how to physically make your own set. Whether you don't live in the United States and perhaps you do live somewhere where these tools are restricted, it could be that money is a factor and maybe you can't justify some extra hobby costs to your significant other. So you got to kind of make do with what you have. Or maybe you're a super experienced picker. I know we have several of those viewing in today, and you just have kind of plateaued on your picking career. Maybe you have all the fancy pick sets from Multi-Pick, from Peterson, from Sparrows, all these nice pick sets. You can pick all of your locks, and you just kind of plateaued. You're kind of getting bored with where to go next. So I offer to you, whether you find yourself in any of those circumstances, try making your own tools. There's so many benefits to making your own kit, but we have a time consideration today, so I'm not going to go into all those reasons about why you should at some point make your own tools. But today we're going to dive into how. So for making entry into residential spaces, commercial buildings, even industrial type settings, one of the highest success probability attacks has nothing to do with actual lock picking. In my opinion, if I were to recommend one technique to somebody who just wants to be more prepared for like emergency entries, you're responding to some kind of incident that's happened and you need to make entry that's not destructive. One of the most highly successful attacks or exploits is door latch loading. It's super easy. There are so many doors that are super vulnerable to this. Slipping the latch, loading the latch, shimming the latch, it all kind of means the same thing. And there's tons of posts and videos by the three of us about how to do that. So I'm going to talk to you about what you can use to do that. There's a lot of great commercial options on the market. I'm going to grab a couple here. I'm sure these items probably look pretty familiar if you followed any of us on Instagram for any length of time. So you have stuff like these card-shaped hooks where you reach in the latch. You have the Slim Jim tools. Those go way back for a long time. Again, another more card-shaped stuff. The Traveler's hook, again, that's for it doesn't necessarily hook the latch, but it depresses the latch. It's more like a probe type tool. And then you have your flexible door shims, the super mica shims, the ultra shims, door shims, whatever you want to call them. This one is the luggage tag. I've talked about it for a really long time. All of these are great commercial options that you can just buy right off the bat, and none of them are super expensive. But if you want to make your own types of tools, we can easily use these as a template and just use some basic materials from around the house and make our own. And I highly encourage that you do so. So for door loading, latch loading, you really need two tools. One tool for doors that open away from you, and one tool for doors that open towards you. Whether you're on the inside or the outside, the door's locked, it swings one way and the latch is exposed, or it swings the other way and the latch is not exposed to you. Either way, you still need those two tools. So like I said before, there are the card-shaped hook tools that you can use, that you can buy, like the Sparrow's Hall Pass, the multi-pass, that kind of thing, or the Traveler's Hook, and that's for when the latch is exposed to you. There are tons of great options that we can use from just trash, truly, to make a Traveler's Hook type tool. This is a piece of chain link fence that came off of a fence when I was walking the dog. When I found it, it still had this L-shaped right here, and it was completely straight. To use it as a Traveler's Hook, you just put the chain link fence into the door jamb where the crack is, where the door closes, and use that as a vise to bend this little L hook in it. Use this as a handle, and then you'll simply put it into the latch, turn it, depress the latch, and now you have a Traveler's Hook for free, completely made from the ground, and that's exactly what this is. Another example, a hanger, a regular wire hanger, just an old hanger. I don't know if they still, I'm sure they still make them, but you see the plastic ones more often now, but this is an old one that I had. Again, just fold it up, use the door jamb as a vise to make your bend. If you have a multi-tool, that works great too, but really easy, free Traveler's Hook. Binder clips are also pretty awesome. It's like the big black clips that you use to pinch each other. You just pop this little spring bar off the end, stretch it out, and it's a ready-made Traveler's Hook. Again, super easy. All these things you can make at home. Wire, really any kind of semi-flexible wire works awesome for guarded latches. So if the door is opening towards us and we can see the latch, sometimes instead of fixing the real issue, which is a strike plate fitment issue, what a business or a company will do is put a Band-Aid to kind of block access to the issue. So they put a big old metal plate right over the latch so you can't access it. Well, we can still access it if we have the right tools. There's the tools like the C-Rat, there's tools like a regular old carpenter square, just a big long L shape where we can reach down past the latch. One of my favorite options is a flexible latch tool, and it's just a piece of wire. This is piano wire number 13, and it stays in my everyday kit for guarded latches. So all these things, super easy peasy to use. The one that I carry in my kit that I made for my everyday primary kit, this is from a dollar store, like chef's knife, like an 8-inch chef's knife. Just cut it down with a Dremel, made the little hook there on the end, and it sits nice and flat, and it cost $1. So you don't have to spend a lot. Again, the commercial options, like this regular Traveler's Hook from Lockpick Tools, they're not super expensive. But if money really is tight for you, or maybe you can't travel with your tools and you have to pick something up once you get to where you're going, you can easily make these things. Again, I used a Dremel and a little sander for this. If you don't have access to that wherever you are, again, you can use all kinds of other things with no tools. So that's your doors that open towards you where the latch is exposed. You use your hooks. For doors that open away from you, where you have to get around the door jamb, you just need a flexible piece of material to slip around the door jamb and to pop that latch. The old credit card trick works amazing. It's been around for decades. I don't like to use like real cards, real credit cards. or driver's licenses because they can crack and they will crack. And you don't want a big old crack running down your driver's license. If you use it enough anyway, it's going to crack. So just use an old card. Old gift cards work really well. I've used thin cardboard, like cereal box cardboard, Pop-Tart box cardboard. It works great as a tool of opportunity. It's just flexible enough, but sturdy enough to still reach around that latch or reach around the door jamb and pop that latch. It works really great. You can use all kinds of things. One of my new favorite ways to exploit this is with something that I already carry anyway, but it's these little Write in the Rain notepads. They have these plastic covers. They come in different sizes. This is like the pocket size. This is the bigger size. These are almost the size of the Super Mica shims. They're really big, but the plastic is perfect for, you have plenty of surface area if you don't quite know where the latch is, but you can just stick it in, it'll pop the latch. And if it does crack or mess up, no big deal. And this is a great place to store all of your tactical lockpicking notes or stickers or note cards that you get from Pat at UTAC with all of this stuff. It's a great way to kind of keep that in a second line gear, 1.5 line gear. These work awesome. And then the other piece that I keep, again, in my everyday set is just from a plastic bottle. This is actually a smart water bottle. You can use 2-liter bottles, milk jugs, real thin cutting boards, whatever you like. But this one stays in my kit, my everyday kit. And with stuff like this, not that you should be breaking the law or to be questioned by anything, but there is plausible deniability with just basic items like this. So door latch loading, that's the big thing. If I could preach one skill for the responsible citizen to learn with entry, it's my opinion that door latch loading is one of the best exercises to practice. Again, most doors, there are a lot of doors that are susceptible to this kind of attack. Check your own home, check your strike plate fitment, make sure the dead latch plunger is being engaged when your door closes, because otherwise you're vulnerable to it too. The other big thing is to obviously lock your deadbolt. If your deadbolt is locked, or if you come across a deadbolt that's locked and you still need to make entry, other than walking the deadbolt, which would be if the deadbolt was installed improperly and isn't thrown all the way. Other than that, most of the time, non-destructively, you're going to have to pick your way into that lock. So to talk about that, we're going to talk about DIY lock picks. Super easy to do. Doesn't take very much money at all. Let me pull up my notes here. All right. So if you go on YouTube and you type in DIY lock picks, you will find 100 videos about how to use paper clips to make lock picks. And they work. They work pretty well as a 1 or 2 time kind of thing. But if we're going to make them from cheap little metal for next to nothing, I recommend bobby pins. The metal is just a little bit stiffer and it holds your bends well, and you can actually make pretty good tensioners out of bobby pins if you fold them properly. I don't know if the camera will pick up on that, but bobby pins, they work really well. You can just pop them in. I've shown on my page picking these American locks with bobby pins. Top of the keyway, you have to kind of grind it down a little bit to get it to fit for that top of the keyway tensioner, but it can be done. And if you're in a squeeze or a tight spot and you have to use bobby pins, just know that it can be done. Again, no tools really needed. If you have a multi-tool to bend everything, it helps. But if you don't, be careful that you can stick it into the lock and use the lock again kind of as a vise to bend. It's pretty soft metal, so it's not going to mess up the lock. And then if you have to shave anything down, you can do that anywhere. You can do it on a gravel rock, piece of gravel that you find, sidewalk, a brick on the side of the wall. You can make it. You don't have to have any money to make bobby pin lock picks. They will wear out after a while. I've actually had these for a couple months and they're wearing down a little bit, especially when you start to apply pretty heavy pressure, pretty heavy tension on there. It just happens. So if that's all you have, you can make it work, but I recommend something a little bit more sustainable for not much money at all. If you work in the auto industry, auto repair, anything like that, you know what this is. These are feeler gauges. I'm not going to talk about what they do because I'm not a mechanic, but it's for measuring gaps, and they come in specific thicknesses. So like right here, if it'll read, that's 20 thousandths, and it goes all the way down to 2 thousandths, which is very, very thin, extremely thin metal. What I've done and what I like to do for people who want to start making their own picks, whether they have picks previously or not, and they just want to make their own set, I recommend going to the store. You can find them at Walmart, you can find them at AutoZone, O'Reilly's, you know, wherever you are. This is $6, and it comes with all the thicknesses that you need and a bunch of other ones that you don't need, but you can use if you want to. That's what it looks like when you buy it. You can just undo your little screw right here, pull out all of your little blades, and make yourself a full set.
Oh, that's fucking
It's very
cool.
comparable to the Covert Companion. It like form factor wise, it just works. Granted, the new Covert Companions with the tension tools, this does not compete with that, but you can make your own tension tools. So 25 thousandths thick, pretty stiff. I use those for jigglers because jigglers take kind of a lot of shaking, moving, rocking side to side. Jigglers for the thicker metals. There's the double-sided, the single-sided is a 22 thousandths. Again, pretty stiff. For 20 thousandths, which is still pretty thick for a pick, but the 20 thousandths I used for my rake. And again, just because it's taken a little bit more abuse, you don't want to go crazy with any of the picks that you have with rocking back and forth, and you don't want to break anything, but 20 thousandths works really well for rakes. 18 thousandths.
Civvy, try and wrap up
Yes,
in
sir.
about 5 minutes, brother.
Gotcha, no problem. 18 thousandths, super easy to reach down into keyways. Again, the various thicknesses, this is 14 thousandths for a medium hook, which is great for tight keyways. You can really slip in between the warding and reach up there and grab those pins. And then 8 thousandths decoder right there, ready to go. You can cover your whole lockpick kit with $6. Let's see. Another great option that's talked about a lot, windshield wiper inserts. That's actually what I use for my everyday picks. Windshield wipers. That goes in my primary kit just from a little piece of metal. Everybody always asks, how do you get to it? You just pull the rubber stripping off, and there is your stock of metal material. Great tensioners, great lock picks. They work awesome. Now, one of my favorite new lock picking materials. I made these guys. This is just a little half diamond that's curved, great little funky shape. And then the tensioner comes from the underwire of bras. If you look at the back side of the bra, under the cup, there's this stiff wire that you can pull out. And the stock that's in there is just like all the other items we've been talking about. Very comparable to street sweeper bristles, your wiper blades. It's really pretty cool. And again, these make awesome ergonomic tensioners because they just curve up nice and easy. Use your little half diamond. So anyway, to kind of summarize, there's options. If you don't have money, or if you're in a restricted place, or for whatever reason, you just want to start making your own picks, you have options. There's tons of materials out there. There's numerous that I have not named. If you need help, please reach out. I'd be happy to give you some ideas. All of this can be done with just basic hand tools, some pliers or some vice grips, and a file. I use, for the majority of my making, just this little knife sharpener. It's like a little belt sander and a Dremel tool. And you guys know what those look like, but everything is done right here on my desk. Super easy. you can knock out a whole set in half a day. So anyway, it's been my pleasure to talk to you guys. If you have any questions, let's take those at the end.
I'll give you let's do 5 to 10 minutes of Q&A, and then we'll jump into Scott Parrott's show.
Sure, lay them on me. What questions can I
If you guys
answer?
have questions, you can type them into the chat if you want, or you can unmute yourself and ask, and just be polite to everybody, and we'll try and get to a couple of them. If we don't get to you, we will do it at the end.
Not really a question. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Excellent. Not really a question, but just a statement. My mother's a full-time RVer, and she called me yesterday, and she locked herself out of an RV, and all those RV locks to get in the side doors are all your wafer locks. And she locked herself out, and so she went to look in. She used a small screwdriver, flathead screwdriver, as the tension, and she took a wire and bent it because I had made some videos for my site. And of course, she's watching me. Probably she held the camera for me, and she picked that wafer lock. So she's 70 years old. She had her dog. She's in a robe. It's like 7 a.m, and she called me that afternoon. Yeah, and so it's just kind of the practicality of lock picking. And but talk about improvised tools. She just had a wire. Anyway, I just want to throw that out there. Improvised tools are super cool, man. So
That's
awesome.
Even
That's
70-year-old grandmas can do it. So
Hell yeah.
That's awesome.
yeah, it was. It made me feel good. I don't know.
Should feel good. That's an awesome feat.
All right.
Anybody else, questions or comments for this segment?
I'm checking the chat to see if people have typed out stuff.
Is there a good place to find templates for picks? Asks Tom.
I mean, the best template is a pick that you already have, but if you're making them from scratch, there's really not. There's not a great way other than just trial and error. That might be something that I do. I might make a post about that, just basic measurements that you kind of want to shoot for, because not all half diamonds are created equal. Not all hooks are created equal. You really do kind of want something that'll fit in the lock pretty well. So that's a great question. And that might be a post. That very well might be a post later on with just some good specifications. Thank you for that.
So I don't have a lot of experience making my own lock pick tools, but when I have, and you can verify this, I think that one of the things I tried to do is I just try to take away too much metal too fast. So I think it's really important that you really just go slow and to get your shape that you want and just take off, take your time doing it. At least as a beginner, trying to make my own picks, I just started just getting too much, and then it's uneven, it's wonky, and it's just doesn't work. Would you think that's a good advice to take your time?
Absolutely. And the other thing that I would say is to just get a little Sharpie and mark your design first, because to your point, when you're holding it there, whether you have your pliers and you're holding it next to the grinding stone or you're dremeling away, when you're doing that, it's easy to take too much material. Just go ahead and mark out your basic design with a Sharpie first. So that way you don't have to think about where do I need to stop. You know where to stop, because when you're trying to eyeball it and your hands are all in the way and your tools are all in the way, you end up with next to nothing left, and your pick breaks and you're frustrated. So yeah, great advice. Yep.
And you just said something really cool. Really, I don't know if everybody picked up on that, but you talked about where the pliers are next to where the tool is working. Super important, so you don't go breaking off your pick as you're going. It also helps with that vibration of the metal and makes you more precise. So you want to explain that a little more for everybody?
Yeah, so when you let's say when I'm grinding here, I'll hold it like this, and then I will, if I'm working on the tip, really kind of fine close work. When you stick it onto the moving belt or the moving grinder wheel on the Dremel, it's going to want to flop and flip, and you're not going to be very precise. So just take your pliers or your vice grips and get nice and close to where you're going to be making your cut, and it'll hold it, and it'll keep it from bouncing all around. If you're brave, you can use your fingers, but it gets pretty hot, especially the bra underwire. For some reason, I don't know if it's like a carbon steel and it just heats up quicker, but those joints get hot when you're grinding on them. So be careful. Just use pliers, and you can do your own thing. If you're using a file, completely different story. Every few cuts you can check every few cuts, and it's not going to get warm. But yeah, if you're using tools, take some extra safety precautions
And some eye protection.
Indeed, I did get some crap out of my eye the other day. So, yeah. Use some eye protection.
All right, we'll wrap up Q&A for this segment. Marcus, you want to jump in?
Yes, sir. All right, what's
Okay.
going on, guys? Sky Pirate Actual here. Quick background. I'm currently, he said, PT belt. Mr. Searpick, he's here. All right, so quick background. I'm currently a staff sergeant in the United States Army, stationed at Fort Bragg. By day, infantryman, and then by night, I guess, decent lock picker, deviant guy, piece of shit. All right, so moving on from there. So what I'm going to break into today, so we're going to talk about the 3 lines of gear. It's actually more of 4 today because we're going to go over the 1.5 because you already know, anyone that has watched me before, I love me some fanny packs. So that is, we'll consider that the 1.5. And then for the women that are watching, that can be like your small clutch or, you know, a very, really, really small compact purse. All right. So what are your 3 lines? What are the 3 lines? So your first line of gear is essentially your EDC. All right. So those are the things that you carry on your person every single day. What I'll do is I'll show you guys what I carry on myself every day, and then I'll kind of go into the why. All right. So yeah, if you guys can also keep on picking too, just because Civvy left doesn't mean stop picking. All right. So right here, obviously I have my pick case. Obviously it has a variety of hooks, rakes, and then it also has some other less known things. I'll pull this one out, and then whoever figures out what it is, I'll go ahead and put it in the comment section. So if anyone has read Pat's book, you'll know exactly what that is.
Interior doors.
Yeah, there it is. There it is. We got some sharp people out here. And obviously I have Searpick's 4-piece set up here as well. And I'll tell you guys why I do that in just a little bit. So the next thing I carry is, and Civvy kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, is the Covert Companion. All right. You can definitely make your own for these. It might cost a little bit more, so it might just be better just to go ahead and buy it yourself. But it obviously comes with tons of different types of solutions for different types of locks. Obviously, you have warded keys. You have a tiny little latch slipping device or loading device. You have this sharp piece of steel right here for your unshielded locks. You have your jigglers. You have a hook, some cone picks, decoders, and then you have some shim stock down there. All right. So what I look for when I'm building at least my first line of gear is to have as much opening ability on my person as humanly possible. Right. So then from there, I have a bunch of commonly used keys or pen test keys. You can find those on Amazon, or you can just buy them all separately, depending on what the actual version of, like, say, an elevator is. Might be a different type of key, right? Because on this one, it has the FAO, I think K1, but there might be different locks. You have to do a little bit of the research on your own. And then last but not least, obviously everyone carries a wallet. All right. And what do I carry in the wallet? Multi-pass. All right. So anytime someone is performing like a loading attack or latch slipping, sometimes you might need to dig a little bit further down into behind the actual latch in order to perform it correctly. But doing it with only the multi-pass is a little bit difficult. So what I do is I add a little bit of 550 cord at the end. So I just drop it behind the latch, and then I go ahead and I tug from the 550 cord. All right. It has worked beautifully since I made it that way. All right. So those are the things that I keep on just my first line of gear. That all fits on my person, no problem. And then we're going to Searpick's portion. All right. So why carry this on the front of something else, right? It seems like a lot should carry. All right. So if anyone didn't know, these are made out of titanium. All right. So if you guys do not have titanium picks, I highly recommend them for obviously very debaucherous reasons. So if you're going into a place and they are obviously sweeping for metal objects and stuff like that, like airports, baseball games, so on and so forth, what I do is I just rip it off the front, and then I go ahead and I throw it in my pocket or my fanny pack, and then I get swiped with the wand and nothing, and I walk on in with my tools. All right, so that's the reason why I do that with the titanium picks. Other people that make them, Write Me Off and Killer Mario Industries also makes the titanium picks. So we're not going to go into the second line of gear just yet. So here's some important questions to ask yourself when it comes to carrying whatever you're going to carry on you. So where am I going to utilize these tools? So are you going to be in an industrial environment? Are you going to be in a commercial environment? Are you going to be in a residential environment? So on and so forth, right? And then you have to ask yourselves within those environments, what type of obstacles are prevalent, all right? Those two questions alone will dictate what things you should carry on you. There's some stuff that obviously like picks you can carry that's always a solution to a problem. Is it going to be the highest on that? Is it going to be the highest on that list of answers to solve a problem? Not necessarily, but those are the things you're going to use in order to shape what exactly you're going to carry in your first, second, third line gear. Reason being, if you're operating in, let's just say a residential environment, do I really need a brute force tool? Do I need a massive holy tool for a residential environment? Chances are probably not. All right. So if I have all of those things on me, you don't want to just be carrying a bunch of gear that you really, the frequency of use doesn't meet the requirements of having to carry. All right. So even moving on from there, now you have your destructive and non-destructive methods, right? Obviously, I'm going to throw destructive completely out of the window for this talk. Reason being is, one, you don't want to incur any actual cost for a destructive entry, all right? I'm sure we probably have some professionals down below in the comments section who are maybe like firefighters, policemen, military, so on and so forth. When we break shit, for the most part, if we have, the okay from whoever's above us to do that job, chances are you're probably not gonna have to pay for it out of pocket, right? But if you're doing this as a civilian, just to prepare a civilian, maybe helping a friend out or something like that, you will incur that cost for breaking someone else's shit, all right? So moving on from there, so we're gonna actually look into my second line bag. I have it right next to me right now. And these are just some things that I carry in it because of the things that I see in the environment that I operate in every single day, which is on a military post, which means it's more of a federal environment because obviously everything on a post has to be regulated. Everything is regulated. So that means the International Code of Compliance, they all have to follow that for how the doors have to be structured, the fact that you really can't use knob locks, you have to use handle locks for people that have reduced tactile function in their hands, especially people that have been blown up overseas, so on and so forth. So if you need to egress from a building, you can go ahead and you can just use the pull down handle and you can walk out. So knowing that, someone down there, lock camp just crushed the question. So knowing that that's the environment that I'm operating in, what are the tools that I'm probably going to try and keep in at least my second line gear, right? Most of you guys will know I don't have the actual underdoor tool with me. It's at work right now, but obviously I made a different one out of a hanger. I have used it before. It works. If you need to, you can modify it yourself by putting two together and just rolling it together because it's stiff enough to do so. But your under the door tool is going to be the primary attack. All right. So another thing that you can use to help you out, and I categorize this for under support items. All right. So what are support items? Support items don't actually have much of a use on their own because they're used to support the actual entry tool. So those support items can be things such as your phone. All right. So anyone that has used the under a door attack understands that with the space that is given underneath the door, you can use the front facing camera on your cell phone if you have one. And then you can go ahead, you can slide underneath the door and you can actually start performing your attack with a little bit, you have a lot more of advantage that you see what's going on underneath that door. So you can see if there's something in your way, or if you're right on the handle, and you can go ahead and start executing the attack. Some other support entry items. So mini pry bars. All right. That is another way to help out with your loading attacks. All right. This is still second line.
Brother.
This is what's up?
About 5 minutes or so. Try and wrap
Oh, I
up.
have 5 minutes left. Holy shit, that was quick.
Yeah, no big deal.
Okay. Here's another one right here, the air wedge. This is, I definitely, if you don't have at least 2 or 3 of these, I don't know what you're doing. All right. So this is definitely a king level support item. All right. All right. I'm gonna dig into the second line gear real quick. I'll speed this up. All right. So some things that I might keep. So mica shim. Obviously, we have some film for over the door attacks for guys that aren't. I'm sure most people here are probably familiar with the over the door attacks. Little less known, but still very valid, is having a headlamp. So low light or no light situations, you need a source of light. I've done a video on light and noise discipline before. I would suggest you guys look that up, especially for the guys that are actually pen testing, or maybe you're law enforcement or somebody that needs to use it, but use it without skylining yourselves or silhouetting yourself at night. Moving on from there, more mica shims. I have a few different choices of lock picks in here because we do run into them. And then one of my more favorite items is a multi-tool. People highly underestimate the ability of, as a support item, from multi-tools. I've used this to make space from doors so that I can duck loading attacks. And you can also use it to make other entry tools yourself. So if I'm using that hanger, I can go ahead and I can use this to assist in making the correct shape so that I can perform those attacks. And then last but not least, tubular lockpick. All right. So all the things that I carry in this pack are all things that I've actually had to face around the places that I work. So you have to use common sense when you're building your 3 lines of gear, so that you're not just carrying around a bunch of bullshit that you're not actually going to use. All right. So you have to use common sense to dictate, or context to dictate the things. That's my lock to dictate what items are actually usable and feasible for your environment. So when you switch out to another environment, say you're going into a commercial environment in a downtown area, obviously you can use things that are a little less known to people. Let's see if I can find it up here. And here we go. Most people might know this from redteamtools.com. This is the J hook, or I know that Coastal Fire Training has their own version of this, which is the JV tool. These are not the same. Okay, I've gotten in some trouble for calling this the JV tool. All right, 4 minutes.
Well, no, I know of 4 of those tools that do that same job as that thumb turn.
Right. Tool. Yeah. So just the J tool or a thumb turner, that might be more prevalent inside of a commercial environment due to obviously storefronts having double glass doors with the locks either on the bottom side, or they might be center fed of the door. But there's usually tons of space in there to go ahead and slide that J tool in there and then open it from the inside. And then that was also in the event that there isn't space between the door, obviously that's where our support items come in to make that space so that we can perform that attack and execute it correctly. And that is actually, I'm not going to go into third line. I'll save that for another time. So that's actually all I have for right now, Pat.
Q&A, anybody that's interested?
Q&A.
Guy Pirate, can we see fanny pack, please?
Oh, absolutely. I thought someone would never ask. Let me see where it's at. Here it is. All right, right here. So this is the Tracer. This is one from Tracer Tactical. I just got this one actually, I'd like to say 4 days ago. So I've been just testing it out. on the day-to-day. So between this one, the one I have from Spirit Systems, and there's another one that I got from Stately Asset Protection. But that one's actually a Faraday bag on top of that. So if whoever doesn't know what a Faraday bag is, you can put electronics in there, and it pretty much shuts your signal completely out from the outside. So now there's some obviously more scientific things for that. I'm not claiming to be an expert in the Faraday bag, but yes, fanny pack. This is a lifesaver. I'm not super duper old by any means, but I don't think you need to be old to be that stylish. So
Hey man, I wore those in the 80s and they weren't that stylish then.
Did you just call a fanny pack stylish?
I'll be a trendsetter by myself.
I used to put my
no
gun
offense,
in
but
mine
when
and
I was
everyone would look at me funny. They'd be like, look at that guy in the fanny pack.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, my fanny pack's loaded, guys. Calm down.
Hey,
In the late 80s,
you were a visionary. That's all that means.
No.
in the late
I also
80s
wore
as a
parachute
kid,
pants, though, so.
I honestly thought that the names of those bags was fag bags.
That's what we used to call them. That's what we called them
Yeah.
back then.
And it had nothing to do with sexuality. It was just, that's the name of the item. And I just,
That's what we called them, man. Yeah.
someone called it something different one day.
Is
And
that
I'm like,
where you
what, you mean-
carried your smokes or something?
Oh man.
yeah, where you store your smokes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So real quick, just to go,
sorry.
you pulled up your little indoor tension tool, or not tension tool, your indoor key. This guy right here, I actually have a bend in mine because I was in a hotel and I was accessing the hotel room safe, and it has the security, and it was recessed like 1.5 inches. And so I took mine and I actually put a bend in it. And what I did was I stuck it down in that hole so I could apply tension to try to pick that lock. So anyway, and these are so cheap, you have them anyway. So mine has a bend in it, but these are so cheap. They're great to have. And some of your different locks that are super recessed. I don't know what your guys' answer to the tension tool for having a lock that's so recessed. You know what I mean? Is, but that's something that I kind of made in order to kind of help out with that. So have you encountered anything like that, or?
Not that recessed. I've had some recessed locks, usually like some bump stop versions of different locks, but nothing to that extent.
Right.
But usually I have no problem making my own stuff for it either. I've had to make, especially for like higher security locks, I've had to make my own tools in order to pick them. So that's not super uncommon to have to make your own tools for it. And you just so happen to fucking think of that shit right on the spot, which bravo, because that was a smart fucking move.
Right. Well, thank you.
All right. I'm going to jump in and take over with our last segment here. And I'm going to try and go quick because it's raining out, and on the farm, there's a 50% chance that when it's raining, we might lose internet. So
okay.
Here we go. So my section here is completely commercial. So this is people that are purchasing gear intentionally to carry in their gear bags. You should absolutely be looking out for stuff that can help you while on scene. You should absolutely be able and versed in making your own tools. But let's move down into the actual, your pocketbook, your wallet, or how much it's going to cost you to get started. So I have 13 tools listed as to fit into the box of the bare bones essential. If you're just building your kit from scratch and you're going on people's websites and you're ordering gear, here's 13 tools for your first, second, and third line that I recommend. The total that I have here is about $260, and that's for all 3 of your lines of gear. And yes, you can certainly do some of this for cheaper, but it's up to you how you acquire it. But let's start with first line gear. I think at an absolute minimum, and feel free to speak up in the chat, but I think your basic stainless steel Bogotas I think these are just the premier fucking OG out of the box, #1 absolute almost necessity, and they are not expensive. I have them listed for about $25. Next, like you guys said earlier, a used hotel room key card, because if you use your actual credit card, it is going to tear the shit out of that. So there might be a time when you say, well, I don't give a shit about replacing my card in a week or 2. I do have to get into this obstacle. This is all I have. So make sure that you weigh that option as informed as you can. So I put those down as $1. A high quality hook tool. Well, there are a couple ones out there. Some are better than others, but at least these two. So I have my first line gear here. I have used the Sparrow's Hall Pass, which I think is around $8 or so. I think it's fantastic. I have never had a reason to use a different tool. I've tried some other tools that have failed. I have not tried this yet, but I don't think it's a bad option. They look to be pretty similar. What you'll see here is they're both hooked, but the depth that it gives you for your purchase on the material, so the area that you can grab that sticks out of the door frame, is different between the two of these. So this one does have a little ring here that often people will put something into that ring to help you pull on that tool. This one does not have one of those rings. You can make one, or I found better grip with gloves on with this if I have to really get in there and fuck around with that latch, which happens. So we're up to 3 tools now. Your standard rake and pick set, just basic Bogotas, something that's a flexible shim tool in your wallet, and some type of latch hook tool. That's 3 items. And the last one I have here for my absolute bare bones, what I would keep in my wallet if I was starting from scratch and I had a very small budget, is these little guys right here. So these are easy decoders. The reason I went with these over any of the other things that I do keep in my first line gear, the reason these made the cut, is on all sorts of obstacles, large and small. Many of them with different types of locking functions or mechanisms will have some type of access code or a wheel that you can spin to put in a code. So these aren't just one make and model. There are millions of makes and models of locks. So if you can feel the gates, these are going to bring you there. Even on my new gear site that I just started, I don't sell and I don't carry in my wallet quick sticks, which are the very thick, rigid version of these. Do you guys have one you can hold up? Sky Pirate Civvy.
Hold on, I think I might have.
So when you get to it, remind me.
Okay.
I don't use them a lot. I have never used a quick stick in a field. I don't fault you if you carry it, but I don't carry it. And instead of that, I just carry 2 easy decoders because I treat them as what you call disposable, meaning it's not that they're useless. It's that they are so valuable that I put them in my disposable category, which is they don't cost a lot of money. I either lose or misplace or damage them a lot. And it's a good reason to have many of them on hand so I can just blindly grab one, use it, and not be stressed about it because they do damage, but they're fantastic tools. So I keep 2 of these in my first line gear. And that's a set of those is about $10 for 2 of these that come in one little pack. That's my first line gear. Second line gear. For a bare bones starter setup. I got it right here. In my second line gear, I keep everything that's shaped like a key set and everything that has a key ring on it. I keep it on a carabiner so that blind in the middle of the night with no light, I can go, oh, I feel the keys. Let me take them out. Now they're in front of my face and I can go without digging, picking up, putting back, getting jumbled, dropping them. I just go, which one do I want? Oh, right here, the next 2 sets, we have warded picks. And they are the least common of the 3 big ones, your warded, your wafer, and your pin tumblers. They're the least common, but this set is so crazy effective that if you do see a warded padlock in the field and that's one of your ways in, you have a pretty high, like 90-ish percentile chance that these are going to get you into that warded lock. Next is your auto jigglers. Lots of places make them. In my opinion, for the most part, no matter where you get your auto jigglers from, it's going to be a good thing. Different sets have different, sorry, I'll stop the jiggling in just a second. Different sets have different pros and cons, but if you get any set, you are really well prepared. And wafer locks are less secure than your pin tumbler locks for the most part, so they're easier to make entry into. But that doesn't mean that you can get into every one of them with this set, so there are limitations. What else we got here? All right. My second line gear, I think you would be wildly incomplete without your commercial grade latch shims. So it's like a credit card, but they usually come in packs of 2 different thicknesses. You can even see the colors are slightly different. and they bend slightly differently. So your commercial latch shims are awesome. Again, you'd be silly to build a second line gear loadout without them. And like Civvy earlier, you can cut them to fit your wallet. You can do all sorts of things with your storage of them. Ooh, back up there. And a multi-tool. I think you guys know what that is. Sky Pirate pulled his out. Mine is deep within my second line gear bag. And one vehicle airbag tool. This is your absolute bare bones essential kit that will get you the most types of obstacles that you can make entry into. And specifically, I like this small one. Let's see the title here. It's just a mini starter one. I actually use a 2 airbag method every time I enter through a vehicle. I put 2 of them up in the corner of the window. I pump them both up. I put my reach tool through the middle. But these are small enough that you can put one of them in your fanny pack or your second line gear bag or wherever, or in the glove box of your car. Won't help you get into your own car, but it'll help you get into someone else's car. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items for your second line gear. Third line gear, under door tool, which I'm not going to pull out, but we talked about that a couple times today. Your gold finger tool, which I don't think we discussed today. That is an auto reach tool. So that's a tool that once you spread the vehicle door away from the frame, this really long, semi-rigid, semi-flexible, but thick wire goes into the door through that tiny little gap. And the edge of it will pull latches and push buttons, and you can roll down windows and things with that. I recommend that one first if you have nothing, because it has a lot of multi-purpose uses, and you can adjust it and you can bend it as you see fit. Some of the other vehicle reach tools are very rigid, which is really good if you need to get a latch and put a lot of pushing or turning pressure on it. But it's really bad if you just can't reach those buttons in the first place because of your approach angle. So the gold finger tool is what it's called, which is a really fucking cool name for a tool. And then a sledgehammer and a pry bar tool. And the pry bar tool, I recommend not a crowbar, but something that has a 90-degree bend on it. And you might have to make that or alter that yourself. But that brings us to about $260 roughly. So that is everything in first, second, and third line gear that I would start with if I have nothing to begin with, if I was starting fresh and clean and I was on a budget. So my segment is kind of short here. So we will open it up to Q&A, and we will roll into just open Q&A for anybody, for any question, for any topic. So we'll do about 5 minutes of that Q&A, then we'll stop the recording and we'll do a lot more open kind of, hanging out Q&A after that. So shoot your questions this way, folks.
Hey, Pat, just real quick, I'm just going to show people, here's your quick stick. It looks exactly like an easy decoder, but this one's rigid, whereas your easy decoders are real flexible. So,
yep. So be careful when you're buying those online.
I got mine from Serpic.
Yeah. The photos online, if it's really if they haven't done a good job of thoroughly explaining it, it's really easy for a beginner to understand, like, oh, I saw this tool in a video. Oh, there's a picture of it. Let me buy it. And then it shows up in the mail and you go, oh, this is too flexible. This doesn't work. Or, oh, this is too rigid and thick. It doesn't work. They're basically outlines of one another, but at different thicknesses. So use some caution when you're ordering.
Here's I got these right here. I have the here they look identical, to each other. One is obviously flexible, and the other one is quite rigid. And then of course you got for the full kit. I got the sparrows right there, but
and they have a use and a purpose. I just think that the percentage for me is too low to warrant putting one in my first line gear.
So a question about those auto jigglers. Now, as retired FD, I can get into just about any car in under 60 seconds with the airbag and a wedge and all that. Yeah. So, at time is life, kids locked in cars down here in South Louisiana. By the time you get there, they've been in there for several minutes, that kind of thing. So I know the effectiveness and wholeheartedly love those, but I don't have any experience with auto jigglers. Would you explain those a little more if you don't mind?
Let me give you my special take on it first, which is why would you use one over the other? And like Scott Parrott talked about, and JustACivvy. So either you have tools available in your environment and you have nothing on you. So if something in your environment can replicate a door spreader and a reach tool, do that. If something in your environment can replicate a jiggler, go with that. And that also has to fit in with your timeline. Is someone in the car with their hair on fire? Well, smash a window, right? And pick a smart window to smash,
Right.
not just any of them. But if you have the time, now you get to do this math equation in your head, which isn't very tough, but it's how long might this entry take? And how long would it take for the next best entry option? And that might be go to the hardware store, buy an air wedge and buy a couple long pieces of wire, and then come back and do your airbag and reach tool method. So you get to do that math on scene. For me, I don't carry my second or third line gear on me unless I'm going to a lockout. They might be in my car, which might be 10 feet away, or they might be in my car, which is hours away because I'm riding with someone else or I'm working or something different. I didn't put it on my list here, but I do keep auto jigglers in my wallet 24/7, 365. So I don't grab my wallet and then my entry tools. I just grab my wallet every single day when I leave the house. And I know that there's items in there that I can use. So now I can go, A, is the keyway susceptible to this entry? And B, how much time should I spend using these jigglers before I devote the time and the energy to either go get my reach tools or to have someone bring them to me or to go buy them or to do destructive entry. So that's the math that happens in my head. These are less and less effective every day, especially on vehicles, because new locking mechanisms are coming out on cars like the linear cut or worm cut, whatever you call them, keys, and then some other variations too. So new vehicles are coming out with different locking mechanisms that make these either ineffective at all or less effective.
Hey,
So
Pat.
there's all the math and there's my approach. What's up?
Hey, so they do have some, I think they're on like multipick.com. They have I forget what they call them. It starts with like a V, but basically they have jigglers for those keys now.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So they're very specific. The VAG keys.
Yeah, the badge keys. Yeah.
They're
I like that.
super expensive though. Yeah, no, that was a pun waiting to happen. Those were like, I think the MSRP was like $175. So if you got it like that, I don't know if that is, that's too expensive to really, I can't justify buying those. So.
Right. So your justification, you also have to understand too, that we are playing a percentage game.
Yep.
So people
Always.
like firefighters, you have a 99.99 repeating, you're getting into that fucking building with something because every option is open to you. It depends on what your starting point or your starting reference point is. For me, for tactical lockpicking, what the book is about is I want to add a skill set to my life. So this is not my primary function. So it's an added skill set. And it's one where your time spent training, your time spent or your money spent on gear, and the amount of gear that you can carry, all of those things are limited. So with that in mind, you'll also be using those things in an emergency. So we have a full spectrum of entry options that are available to us or that we can use depending on the situation, but we outfit ourselves with limited resources. So there's a lot of mental math that happens between which tool do I use, which attack vector do I attack first, how long do I spend on it, when do I go into destructive breaching. So my curriculum is not a limiting curriculum. I say whatever the fuck works for you, go run with that, have fun. But I start with teaching people these lower kinetic, less destructive methods first. Hopefully that was enough word vomit for you to help answer your question.
Yeah, coming from a preparedness standpoint, and I think that non-destructive methods are the best. You know what I mean? Because like down here, and this is something that down here, and we just had Hurricane Ida. I was without power for a week. A lot of people are still without power. And if you're displaced or you're having issues with, shelter, non-destructive methods, are super important because you can get in somewhere, and to be in a place you shouldn't be is one thing, but to have busted into the place and destroyed a bunch of stuff is an entirely different thing. So if you had to go get shelter from someplace, and let's say you had to get into an RV or a shed or something like that, which all use wafer locks, like all these Graceland buildings down here, because you had to get out of the shelter and you want to secure that door back. So for me, non-destructive, in the fire department, we destroy everything. We're like, fucking break it. Yeah, let's do this.
Fuck it.
Chief, fuck it. It's ain't my dime, and so, but I think from a civilian side, non-destructive is a super, kind of the way to go. You know what I mean? So.
Agreed. All right, we are going to I'm gonna go ahead and hit the stop recording button, and then we'll just continue with our Q&A and with our chat. Feel free to open up a little bit. And thanks so much for coming. 3, 2, 1, done.